Hello and welcome to the Black Tower. I'm the host, your guide, your brother, the Sorcerer Armasul. Coffee with the Sorcerer, and today we have a very dear friend of mine, JS Garrett. Say something.
Hey, how's it going, man? Appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I got my coffee here too.
Oh,
Uh,
I love those things. I mix the coffee flavored regular mocha frappuccinos, and I put one of those in it, so it's like a half and half. It's kind of nice.
oh yeah,
Energy boost and doesn't mess with your stomach.
yeah, yeah, very good.
All right, so brother, yeah, we've been friends since before you went to work with From the Ashes Publishing. You
Yeah,
know, back when you were first hitting the scene, and I remember that one of the first thoughts I had was, here is a sorcerer who actually just fucking knows his shit. And I'm not gonna lie, you kind of had me at the whole I sacrificed a chicken for my wife.
yeah.
That that is immortal. That'll never leave my head.
Well, I can't think of a better way to show your spouse that you love them. Sacrifice a chicken to them.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. You got my wife telling me, "Where's my chicken?"
Yeah, it was pretty crazy how that came about. And first of all, I never set out to do this professionally or even come onto the scene. It all really started with me trying to figure out a way to give my wife more energy. And so there was really nothing out there. I mean, there's typical vampirism that'll give you energy for a short period of time, and then you're going to crash. Whether you're drinking blood or siphoning energy or blood essence, whatever kind of vampire you want to categorize yourself as, it's very temporary, and there's a downside to it. So I was looking for more of a permanent solution to this, and through communion with Shemyaza and Astarte and Belial, this ritual came to me just out of nowhere. Kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like just downloaded, and so the only thing to do was to try it out. And I ran it by the wife, and she was all for being the guinea pig for this operation. So yeah, I went out and bought a really pretty chicken and drove to a mountaintop and waited till she was asleep and proceeded to evoke her spirit out of body, just like I would any other spirit. I just put her name into your typical conjuration, and had no real expectations of what was going to happen. I didn't know if it was going to work. It was just purely an experiment. And so I speak the conjuration, I think, one and a half times. I was halfway through it the second time when the wind picked up and the fire like made this really strange growling sound, and I started getting glimpses of like faces in the flame, and it was very apparent that I had a presence there. So I went ahead and made that sacrifice and spilled the blood in the flames and stated what the purpose of my doing this was for. And that was it. I closed out the ritual. I dismissed her spirit back to her body. I cleaned up everything and came home, and I found her, and she was like in a coma, like she was dead to the world, like to the point where I checked her pulse when I got home to make sure she was okay, because she normally wakes up whenever I come in the room, and this she slept through the night. But yeah, the next morning she woke up and freaked out a little bit. She was off balance. She was kind of stumbling around a little bit, like she said she felt like she was floating around. She felt kind of high, like from a narcotic high. And so she sat down and had a cup of coffee and just chilled out for a little while. And once she kind of grounded, that floaty feeling went away, that off balance feeling went away, and she just had a shit ton of energy. And that lasted for months. Like she literally pinged off the walls for like 3 months straight. And she would sleep like 2 hours a night and wake up and be awake the rest of the night. Like she only needed 2 hours of sleep, whereas before she would need 12 hours of sleep just to function throughout the day. So she also saw some very dramatic health benefits from this: thicker hair, thicker fingernails. She looked about 5 years younger. I mean, it was pretty bizarre. So I knew I'd stumbled onto something really cool here. So I began experimenting on different people, getting, I talked my neighbor into let me do it for him. I did it for a guy I worked with. I wanted to do this for people that I could observe on a daily basis so that I could really, document true and accurate results, people that I was around all the time. And yeah, each time it worked. Each time it was the same. They got the same type of effects. And I published that in the anthology. And a few months after that got out, people started emailing me and things like that, wanting this ritual done. And I guess they were contacting the BALG help desk also asking about it. So yeah, I put it in the catalog and it exploded overnight. I mean, that's one of the best-selling rituals of all time, and it just that's where it started. I didn't really set out and plan for this. It just kind of evolved organically.
Yeah. This is the rite that basically cemented your position or place in the occult community. I think that's very interesting because from husband to husband, it was an act of love that even drove you to this place. And and when you share it, when you work it, I can't help but feel or sense that same care and concern, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
Also, something rather interesting, and I'd like to tap into a subject with you. Magical intent. Okay, so all works or rituals or rites or any of these other things, they're backed up by your intent, by the magician's intent. Like, for example, your intent in that particular rite, which is the rite of deification that you offer through from the Ashes Publishing. Uh, that's for the viewers who don't know where to go. I'll provide a link afterwards for it. But intent. Um, is the intent that you put behind the rites and rituals, do they change with what rites you're doing and why you're doing them? Or do you always come from one particular place when performing any rite?
No, they definitely change from ritual to ritual depending on what I'm trying to do. The state of mind that I put myself into, the psychological states, the emotions that I bring out of myself, that all depends on the operation. So it's always different.
Yeah. Um, we'll say because I'm a old school high magic ritual practitioner, and Aleister Crowley has like really carved a niche in my head or my psyche, if you will, concerning the act of raising the vibration, and that all things are born out of love. With the love is the law, love under will, and I've met a few practitioners who, when they're doing baneful magics, I get the same results coming from this place of just raising the heart chakra's energy, the vibration of, I do this as an act of love, and it's a love of self. And because, in a sense, it acts as a focal point to say, I love myself enough that I'm not going to stand for this. I'm not going to deal with this. And so, like, when I call like someone like Belial, and I ask him, I'm like, I'm being judged for such and such. They have no right to judge me. Can you help me take care of this or show me how? And it's with that love that I raise, and I get the same results as someone who like builds up all this anger and rage, to work baneful magics. And I've noticed that the energy return is cleaner, my method, versus if I try to raise anger, rage, and all that. I'm just curious. Have you had similar experiences? And what can you add to this question? I guess.
That's a pretty good question. Actually, I have. A lot of the work that I've done for people is healing work. To heal them of different illnesses or afflictions. And I've actually incorporated baneful magic or baneful energies into these healing practices. And to give you an example, I had a close member in my family that had a tumor on their shoulder, right back here, a very large tumor growth, whatever you want to call it, underneath the skin. It was about the I don't know, it's a little bit bigger than a golf ball, very uncomfortable, very painful. We weren't sure if it was cancer or not. A very stubborn old school man did not want to go to the doctor. And so, I'm like, okay, well, let me do an experiment on you here, and he was all for it. So what I did was I execrated this tumor. I started with an exorcism, putting my hands over it and speaking a very powerful old world exorcism. And what I was doing with that is trying to drive out the energy that was sustaining that tumor. The psycho-spiritual, metaphysical energy that was causing the manifestation of that tumor. I was execrating that, driving it out with an exorcism. And I proceeded to speak several healing chants, called on several different spirits to aid and assist me with this operation. And then it got a little bit darker. Then I started, for the love that I had for that person, and the fact that this tumor may have been killing them triggered a lot of rage within me from a state of love for that person, anger and hatred towards that tumor because it was killing this person that I cared about. And so it was like that love and that rage and hatred kind of combined together there to create a very powerful emotional response within me. And so I kind of had the mentality in doing this that tumor was a foreign body, an intruder, looking at it like the enemy, and was able to muster quite a bit of anger and baneful energy to attack that tumor with, while at the same time doing it out of love for that person and holding space and protection over their body. And it actually worked. I didn't think that it worked. Like a month went by and it was still there. It took right about 3 months, and this thing got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then totally disappeared. So yeah, that was interesting. It's something I'm still analyzing, but whenever it comes to even baneful workings, another example, and I don't offer baneful rites to the public, mainly because I hear one side of the story. And these curses, they work whether you believe in them or not. The fate is often worse than death, and I'm just not willing to do that for any random person over the internet that wants to curse their ex-husband or some shit. But I did have a case where a person came to me where a child was being molested by her own father. This wasn't that long ago, and that was one of those cases where I was like, okay, this is very appropriate here to do a curse for this person. And so I performed a really nasty, baneful working. But at the same time, what was driving me was the desire to help this child that was being harmed. And I love children. So it came from a place of love also. That desire to remove that predator from the situation, which that was also very successful. I call it the reverse deification rite, which is essentially the weaponized version of the rite of deification. I've never taught anyone how to do this. That was the first time that I'd tried it. I'd theorized that that could be done, because if something can be used to help someone, it can usually be twisted and tweaked to use to harm someone. And because I get such dramatic effects, like instantaneous next day effects with the deification, right? I thought, well, okay, if I could do this in a baneful way, then I could potentially get an instant, we'll call it an execration, which it actually worked very well. That child is no longer being molested, and that person is no longer around. So yeah, but it was all the same. It was done out of love. So.
Well, I bring this up because I don't want to be confused as, being somebody who's like, a white lighter or, a right hand path that's dabbling upon the left hand path. But the point behind the whole coming from a place of love is that is my initial intent. Now, like you were describing, I've had quite a few times where I'm doing an exorcism, and I mean, I am pissed, and I'm beyond pissed. I'm just enraged. And that energy, that power, it's powerful, it's strong. And I love how energy can transform from one vibration to another, to another, to another. And that's all part of the intent and the will of the practitioner, in my opinion. Uh, there's a time and a place for all things. Like for example, there was a time when I was working with a very destructive spirit that I won't name at this particular time, and part of it was that I had to enrage myself. This is where you visualize yourself in a red sphere. You know, you start off with a red spiritual heart center, build it up with rage. Whether it's just angry thoughts, feelings, anything gets it stirred. And then eventually it starts to grow to where you're in a sphere of red, kind of like you're walking the Mars sphere on the tree of life, if you will, or it's that burst form of it. And then you summon this spirit. Well, this particular spirit that I was calling upon, I'll never forget the very first thing he told me. Why do you need me if you yourself can do this? And I was a little bit taken aback because I'm like, because I need you to do this, And now, mind you, I was young. I was probably 20. And there was a really good friend of mine, similar situation like what you're talking about with the molestation. And from my talk of communion with this particular deity, I decided to write a spell called the Terrible. Well, it wasn't named at first. It was just, created on the fly. And it was known as the Terrible, Horrible Curse of the Crotch Rot Blue Ball. Is what a friend of mine named it because of its effects. And I was supposed to send a copy to you and to Sorcerer to check out and to try it on your own. It's one of those where it's one of those when things are not right, when a balance must be maintained, when something must be made right. And so it is one of those where you need to be as angry as fucking possible, to be able to perform, because it starts off without the intent of reaching that place of love and in the heart, because we should always abide in that no matter what. So there should be no focus in trying to reach that point. But with this particular one, all you do is, you just, when you think about it, there are things in this world that are just fucking wrong. I mean, they shouldn't exist. They shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a thing. And I've had a lot of people argue with me and tell me, well, back in the old days, this was normal. And I'm sitting there going, you know, I have faced my demons, and and I've seen the wickedness that whatever so-called wickedness uh, that is in me, and I know what I'm capable of, and I know what I will and won't do, and so forth and so on. I know my shortcomings, but I fight that thought because it's like if you have to become so deranged to be considered a sorcerer or a black magician, then I don't know what you would call it. I disagree with that concept. Do you have any thoughts on things like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, back in the day, slavery was considered normal too. I mean, right and wrong, it's all a matter of opinion and perception, and each person has a different idea of what right and wrong is. And really, when it comes down to it, your opinion of that is the only thing that really matters. So, I mean, if it's wrong to you, then it doesn't matter if it's okay to someone else. Being the god of your own reality. But yeah, I mean, as far as a white magician or a black magician or having to transform into some kind of evil being to be considered a black magician, I mean that's all stereotypes in my opinion. I'm not a white magician or a black magician or any type of label. I'm just like everything and nothing. It's whatever the situation calls for. And I do work, like healing work that would be considered light work, I guess, and I can go to the extreme opposite of that at the snap of a finger. So it really just depends on the situation and the person and the circumstances of what's involved.
So you clear that up in such a precise way, and I like that because, for example, I have viewers that they watch these videos and stuff, and they go elsewhere and they looking into all this other stuff. And the thing is that in today's generation, there are no true guides, teachers. There's none of that. You have resource, 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 and then it's all left up to the individual to try and figure out where to put it inside themselves. And so I think it's very important, like you just said, the way you described your own self. I myself, I'm just wailing. You know, I might present myself as a sorcerer on my soul, magically, and on my channel, but I'm just wailing. And now what that entails is a whole lot of things. That's just like you said, each each situation is completely different. And so I appreciate you saying that and bringing that to the forefront because the question in itself is kind of a loaded pistol. And and I didn't want to get into that aspect of whether it's right or it's wrong, what you think about this, what you think about that. But you actually answered, the part that I was actually, wanting the answer on is, if you had to give advice towards other practitioners concerning, this whole advent of the left-hand path becoming a big thing in the media, whether it's on Facebook, online, through the news. Because, I've heard some pretty disturbing stories in the news. This one guy, he claimed he was a god. And his girlfriend, convinced her to go and, like using a syringe with a drug, go and try and kidnap another chick so that they could rape and ritually sacrifice her. Dude, I am just blown away. Where do these people come from? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that would fall into the category of being a psychopath. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of stereotypes, the whole satanic panic, and anytime you hear about something to do with black magic in the media, it's going to be centered around this negative stereotype. I've worked with some of the darkest entities in existence, and they have never requested or demanded anything of me that compromised who I am. They've never asked for a human sacrifice or anything like that. I think what it comes down to is that people are evil and they're going to find an excuse to do these terrible things no matter what, whether they're doing it in the name of Jesus or Allah or Satan. I don't think that these entities, any of them, would condone the rape of a child or a woman or the murder of an innocent person. I think that's a human condition. I think that that's just people that are mentally ill finding excuses to do the things that they personally want to do. I don't think it has anything to do with devils or angels or entities or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, now that we've had the serious part of the conversation concerning, morals and so on, let's go to one of my favorite subjects, Shemyaza. You shared a sigil and some workings of Shemyaza to help me try and find my true name. And I gotta say, at first I didn't think it was gonna work. I really didn't. And I'm not talking about when I started it. No, I had utmost faith. I didn't even question it, didn't even think about it. I just did the working. Next thing I know, 3 days passes, 5 days pass, and I think somewhere around the sixth or seventh day, I was actually, gave the answer. And concerning Shemyaza, that is probably one of the most beneficent spirits to mankind. As far as, ascension, knowing things. And then I have a deep love and just in general for the race of watchers. Just period, end of story. Um, Do you have a lot of like is it a constant working with Shemyaza with you, or is it just like he comes and goes? You want to talk about that a little bit?
It's really a constant working. It's an ongoing relationship. First of all, yeah, I think he's one of the most beneficial spirits to mankind, and I also think that's why he's been almost totally wiped out of history. I mean, the Book of Enoch is the only place that he's mentioned, and it's very brief. It just says that he taught root work and sorcery, and that he was the leader of the Watchers. And that's it. That's all it really says. And you can Google him all day long, and you won't find anything more than that. And the Book of Enoch was removed from the Bible a long time ago, and it didn't resurface until they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it doesn't really say a whole lot more about him in there either. So I really think that he is one of the largest threats to the global power structure, and that's because of the information and knowledge that he possesses. They refer to him as the knower of the name, and they say that that means that he is the knower of the secret name of God, and that if he gives this name to someone, this formula, whatever you think it is, then you can use that to ascend to godhood. Okay, now I think that's been slightly misinterpreted. I think it's plural. I think he is the knower of the names, as in he is the one who can give you your true name, tell you your God name. And once a person has that knowledge, once you know what your true name is, then you can you can not only create rituals to deify yourself through that name, but you can also start performing your own magic by calling upon your true name or your God self to carry out a task in this reality. So that really opens the door for all kinds of possibilities. And it's said that whenever he fell to earth, it was for the love of Ishtar, and that he gave her the secret name of God, and that she was able to use that knowledge to ascend into the heavens and become the goddess Astarte. Now, I think that he was able to give her her true name, which would have been Astarte, and they probably performed mass rituals of deification in order to empower her to the point where she literally transformed into this godlike being. So, I mean, that's what I think it's talking about. Now, as far as learning magic, there's really not a better entity to form a relationship with, and we're talking any type of magic. We're not talking about one specific system. Shemyaza teaches the magician to tap into the very essence of magic itself. So, really anything that you're trying to do, let's say you have a task that you need to accomplish, and there's no ritual for that task in any book. There's no spirit to help you with it. You can evoke him, and I recommend making a blood offering, but you don't even have to do that. You can simply evoke him and ask him for the answer, and you may not get the answer right then. It might happen 3 days later while you're taking a shower or something. You're not even thinking about it, and it just bam, it'll hit you like a ton of bricks. So it's essentially like you're giving up this question to him or to the universe, whatever you want to call it, and it comes back to you with the answer. It's very interesting how that happens. But I definitely think that he's one of the most, not only one of the kindest spirits that you can form a relationship with, but also one of the most knowledgeable and beneficial. So I definitely recommend that to people. It doesn't matter what system you're from, if you're right hand path, left hand path. That doesn't really matter so much to these entities. That's something that we humans get hung up on. So.
Well, I have a really interesting story. Between 19 and 23 years old, I was starting to work in Solomonic magic, and I worked with a particular deity or an angel by the name of Sandalphon. Now, Sandalphon is supposed to deliver your prayers to the throne, or to God, if you will. Well, even at a young age, I kind of understood that what that meant was it creates a bridge between your conscious and your higher self. So, like let's say your conscious self wanted to know something. You could invoke Sandalphon to take your prayer to your higher self versus an external deity or being. And I found that worked really well. And that's why when I was seeing your Shemyaza workings, I was like, oh, holy shit, this is cool. This is really cool.
Yeah. Well, whenever what you just said there about carrying the prayer directly to your higher self, um, what you can obtain by learning your true name or working with Shemyaza is the name of your higher self.
Yeah.
So then you can commune with and work directly with your higher self, with your God self. So it essentially cuts out all the middlemen. And just the power in that name is phenomenal. You can literally command things or request things by the power of your own name and watch it manifest almost instantaneously at times, depending on what you're trying to do. So if you make sacrificial offerings to your higher self, then it empowers you not only on a spiritual level but also on a physical level, because it is your higher self that is animating this body as well. I don't think that we are I don't think we're fully inhabiting these bodies. I think that the soul or the higher self and the body are two separate things, and we're essentially our higher self is hovering above us with a
With a
tentacle
lot.
into your brain that is animating this body with consciousness. Otherwise, like it says in even the Bible, that they would be like the beasts of the field. Um, so what if the key to really becoming a godlike being is to undergo full possession with your higher self? Now, that's an interesting concept there as well. So how would you do that? I think you would have to first discover the name of your higher self, your true God name. And I think you would have to strengthen this vessel, this body, to a point where you could fully inhabit it with that much power. And then I think that you would need to ritualistically sacrifice your flesh to your higher self. And that could possibly result in a full-on possession with your God self that would empower you like nothing else would. That's just theory of mine. It's something I'm working on, actually. But yeah, I figured I'd go ahead and share that since we're on the subject.
Well, let me share some thoughts on that. About 18 years ago, I kept arguing with my brothers, with my magical brothers. I was like, why do you have to have this name of God and this name of God and this name of God to do any of these workings? Why can't you use your own name? And then it was always my argument. And I messed with it, and I messed with it for years. Uh, I had to invoke my own true self, my inner core, which at the time, still, I've been at this for 23 years, so it's taken a while to get to where I'm at, magically speaking. However, and I think this is interesting, a concept that I've always had is that what we see right here, just like you were just describing, you were saying hovering above. It's always been a rather strange experience to me, kind of like a lucid dream, if you will, that this is animated, like you said, by an intelligence that does not necessarily abide in the body, is connected to it, which gives it the drive and the direction and go here, go there, the eagle eye view, if you will. And so I agree with you on that because I believe the exact same thing on that. But that's my own personal belief, not something I try to proselytize or try to, convince others of. But I know something rather strange. When Shemyaza told me my true name, I went nuts. Like the very first thing I did was do a self deification right to myself using my own blood. And to do so, you have to kind of separate your psyche. You have to, that you are not this, but you are in this. And so I use that mentality with it. And then when I conjured my higher self, after giving the offering of blood and everything, I then took it within, like drinking it up.
Yeah.
And that was so powerful. Not even funny. Uh, so yeah, the ways and the methods that can be used, and dude, it's just numerous how you can do that. Uh, and concerning true names and the right of deification that you offer, have you had anybody yet who says use this name because it's my true name? Have you had anybody do that yet?
Well, I have I have had people request that I also call them by their magical name.
Yeah.
And they will give me their legal name, and then will give me what they consider to be their magical name or alter ego, whatever you want to call it. And so I'll also incorporate that. But all right, so here's the thing: if you know your true name, if you do this path working and you discover your true name, one of the things that came through to me with that from Shemyaza, he said it is beneficial to work with yourself in the third person. Okay, so say you discover your true name. All right.
Yeah, now I don't feel crazy.
Yeah, you would want to evoke yourself in the third person and make offerings, sacrificial offerings to your higher self to empower yourself. Or you could evoke your true name just like you would evoke any other spirit and send it out into the world to accomplish a task on your behalf. That's really one of the most powerful forms of magic that I've found. And I think that as magicians, that's what we're working towards, to get to where we don't need the help of spirits to accomplish things like that. We can do it ourselves.
See, that's kind of what happened to me when I did that. Because when I was told or discovered my true name, of course, the first thing I did was test it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, my holy daemon was just coming through, my higher self, whatever word or phrase you use to describe that part of yourself, that is your God self, your sacred core. And when I discovered the connection and the link was a real thing, it was kind of weird because at that point I was given an inverted triangle and shown the difference in the triangles of how they're used ritualistically. Like, when do you use the upright triangle in conjurations, evocations? When do you use the down pointing one, the inverted one? And that's neither here nor there. But I was given this magical triangle, and it took my key and transformed it and into a similar form, but just different. And it said, "Make this your center." And I was like, "What, the center of myself?" And I was like, "No, the center of the triangle evocation." Uh, and so I did this, and and it was kind of strange that I felt that disassociation, like I was this body, this flesh, doing this working, and then I was conscious of being Waylon, just a normal person that operates through this. And then, just like you were just describing in third person, you know, I was outside of myself completely, 100%. Then I was a higher self itself being conjured down. And so it was a really strange, fascinating, and just all around positive experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that sounds just like the experiences that I've had.
Yeah.
And another thing that you can achieve through this is discovering your sigil. I think we each have a sigil, and by evoking yourself in the third person by the power of your true name, you can obtain a sigil for yourself, a sigil of power that you can also use to not only tap into your own personal power, but if someone else was to draw that sigil and place a blood offering on that and burn it, it would transfer that energy directly into you. And so that's the way two magicians can empower each other, by working together. If two magicians discover their true names and their true sigils, then you could perform the deification rite for each other using that information, and it would be even more powerful than sitting there, calling someone by their legal name. That sigil can be used to transfer that energy directly into you without doing an evocation. There's all kinds of shit you can do with this, and uh, I really encourage people to experiment. Um, I'm just scratching the surface here.
Yeah.
I have not even begun to fully uncover the possibilities that can be done and accomplished with this information. So, yeah, I highly encourage others to figure this out along with me.
Yeah. It's like, you never fully plumb the depths.
Yeah.
Uh, and concerning true names and all this, let's talk about trust. Do you do people actually trust you with like their power words, their so forth and so on. And then how do you take it when somebody does trust you with that kind of information? Because it's said that you're not supposed to give your true name to anyone else. That you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But me being the rebellious type I am, someone like you, I would ultimately trust with that. But that's not likely, you know what I'm saying? That is a sacred trust, and part of it, it's kind of like a curse that, oh, I trust you with this. But if you use this against me, because I do know my higher self, because I do know myself, then, it's like spelling doom for yourself. And it's not a curse that you've created mentally. It's just something that abides within that name itself. Do you agree, disagree, or what are your thoughts?
No, I agree with you 100%. And yeah, I mean that's you. Yeah, you really shouldn't give your information, your true name and sigil to anyone unless you absolutely trust them with your life. Because yeah, that could definitely be used against you. To give someone your true name is, in a sense, to give them power over you. And it's I never tell people to. I always say don't trust anyone. I
Yep.
mean that's the smartest, safest way to go about it. But I do think that two spiritually evolved beings can get to the point where that is not an issue, where you can agree or even make a blood pact with someone that says, okay, I'm going to trust you with this information, and you hereby swear that you will never use this against me. Even if we become enemies or disagree in the future, we will never use this information against each other or give this information to anyone else. And you could evoke someone like Lucifer or Belial to witness this pact, and you could both sign it in blood as an insurance for both of you that this will not be used against you, because that entity that witnesses the pact is going to enforce that pact.
Yeah.
So that's one way to get around that. Clients do tend to trust me with this information quite often. I never ask them for it. A lot of times they'll give it to me, and like, here's my sigil, here's my magical name. If you'll call me by this, and I'm like, absolutely. I hold that in the same confidence that a lawyer or physician would. I don't divulge that information to anyone. So it just, yeah, that's to each their own. I would never ask anyone to give me that information, but if you did have someone that you could trust to that extent, you could definitely use it to empower each other beyond anything else that I've seen. So
Yeah. Well, I gotta say this right here though. It's not because you appear friendly. It's because with all people, with all creatures, or whatever you want to call it, there is a spirit that abides with them. And if you're really sensitive enough to it, you can kind of read that person. You can tell their personality types, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. And that's why I said, with a thing like that, I would have no problem trusting you. But there are a lot of people out there, that would try to mimic what you do, and then, try to tell them, oh, I'm the good guy. Oh, you can trust me. I'm going to help you. Yeah, no. No, I tend to trust very few people at all, and I mean, I could probably literally count them on one hand
yeah,
that I absolutely, literally trust. And I'll still have fingers left over. Um, But I am so glad that we have somebody like you actually doing this, that you're not handing it over to a protege or a student or, whatever. You're doing this yourself, because I think it's important that people know that the one who introduced it, is trustworthy, is this, is that. Because you know as well as I do that in this community, if you get a bad rap, that's going around. You will get blacklisted in the occult community nowadays. I mean, they're ready to smack you and go, hey, don't trust this person because it's such and such. So, I'm thankful to have you doing this. But for the next part of this particular interview, I want to talk over some of what you do, and not necessarily your offerings or stuff like that, but like you work for From the Ashes Publishing. I'm sure you do your own gnosis inducing, your own magical practices and study. I've seen you work with others, and so forth and so on. would you care to talk about any of that? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I offer services on two separate platforms actually. One is From the Ashes Publishing, and the other one is becomealiving.god.com. But between those two platforms, they keep me extremely busy. Like I never could have imagined how fast this was gonna take off. I'm literally, thankfully, one of the most hired magicians in the world right now, which is just incredible. But I also still do my own path working. I still have a career. I work a full-time job, and I have a family. So I'm very busy all the time. I mean, I only sleep a few hours a night, and if I wake up, I go to work, I come home, I do my consultations, and I set up and I do my rituals for hire, and then I still have to have enough energy to do my own path workings after that. So yeah, it's a great time to be alive right now. I'm enjoying it. This is what I like to do, and I'm looking at taking this to a whole nother level in the near future. There's some interesting things in the works. I've come across some very awesome opportunities through my clientele as well as others that I've met in this field. So yeah, I won't get into any of that right now because it's still manifesting. But yeah, I'm just getting started. That's for sure.
Yeah. I've been enjoying this particular series of Coffee with the Sorcerer because I know everybody knows just about all the big players. And I try to bring out some of the lesser knowns or some of the ones that only certain people know. And then I also try to bring out my friends. And I do consider you a friend, not just a brother. Because to me, I think that these titles, these names, they have power in and of themselves, you know. And so I'm no fool when using them. And I don't toss them around lightly. And I do consider you a friend. And it is with that respect and gratitude for you that I wanted you on here. You know, I see so many videos of everybody trying to sell their product. You know, and and advertisement, it is important. It really is. So that people know that you're still there, that you're still doing this, you're still doing that. But at the same time, it's also good to get to know these people independently from the services they provide or any of this other stuff because all of us, we're just human beings, you know. And so, it's an honor to have you here, brother.
Oh, it's an honor to be here, man. I appreciate that. That's a lot of kind words and compliments, man. So thank you very much. And yeah, I consider you a friend and an excellent magician also. So yeah, I think it's great that you're doing this. It helps people get exposure, and it's also putting out free content. I mean, something I've learned so much just from watching other people on YouTube that it's not even funny. So I really appreciate every magician that's willing to put themselves out there and put their content out on YouTube like this. So I definitely want to give back and do the same thing because I remember several years ago sitting in my office watching EA and Nate Bales doing podcasts and talking about all this stuff. And dude, I learned so much from watching those guys just sit there and shoot the shit that it was unreal. So I definitely want to give that back any way that I can. So yeah, thanks for having me.
It's an honor as always, brother. Uh, so, where all can people find you? Where are you comfortable with people knowing how to contact you through Facebook? Do you have Patreon? Do you have any of that? What is?
No, no Patreon or anything like that. Really, the easiest way to get a hold of me is through one of the platforms that I offer services on through, becomealivinggod.com or fromtheashespublishing.com. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm a pretty nice guy. I'm pretty approachable. People shoot me a lot of questions through PMs on there. I answer them in the order that I get them when I have time to. I am extremely busy, so it might take me a few days to get back to people. But yeah, I try to be helpful, and I give out a lot more free information than the only thing I really charge for is the ritual for hire and things like that, or face-to-face consultations. But it's that's like a perk to this. Like I never really set out to do this as a profession. That just kind of happened. I really want to I would really like to see more people pick up this metaphorical sword of self-empowerment. And because I think if everyone did that on an individual level and became empowered on an individual level, then it would really make this world a better place. It would make us much more difficult to dominate and control. And that's something I'd really like to see change in the world. Also, we should be governing ourselves. We should have personal freedom and personal power, and all that good stuff. We're not children that need to be told what to do. We're very capable beings that have been enslaved. So this is really the best way that I can see the individual to be empowered to the point where they can overcome that. And if enough people do that, then it'll have effects on a global scale. So yeah, I love getting on here and talking about this shit. I like putting information out, and I love seeing people work together. That's something we don't see much in the occult community. And I use the term community very lightly because, let's be honest, there's not much of a community. You have a bunch of people that are mostly fighting amongst themselves and trying to outdo each other. You don't see a whole lot of guys saying, "Hey, let's do this path working together just to make each other stronger." You don't see that much. So I'd like to see that change also.
Yeah, I absolutely agree there. It's one of the things I do with my YouTube channel, The Black Tower, my Facebook group, The Black Tower, is it's a safe place. It's a place where the actual ones who are interested in actual community, not just, who puts out the most content or who's more this and more of that, because I'm not interested in that. There's a time and a place for all of that, of course, but with our community, I totally agree that there needs to be a lot more camaraderie with that. Uh, and to quote a old vampiric creed, as we unleash the power to change ourselves, we unleash the power to change the world.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and that's that is at the heart and core of who we are. Individually, not what we are as a collective. You know, and so we're gonna close this out. But first and foremost, I'm gonna say thank you so much, brother, for actually being here, for setting aside the time for this, because it took us, I think, 2 weeks to get the timing and set up, and I appreciate you taking your time for this.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It was a pleasure, man. I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, I'm always happy to jump on and just shoot the shit for a while.
is there anything you would like to tell the audience? I mean, anything, just advice, anything. Just what would you like to actually say to the audience, just from you?
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, the best advice that I could give anyone who's looking to learn more about magic or ritual practices is just to find what resonates with you. It does not have to be the same thing that I do or that anyone else does. But find something to do to better yourself and dive in head first. Don't hold anything back. Don't let the stigmas scare you. Embrace your fear and literally just put both feet in. You can't do this halfway and get the kind of results that people are going for. You have to commit yourself to it 100%. So whether it's black magic or white magic or Reiki or just simple meditation, whatever it is you're comfortable with doing, push the limits of what you're comfortable with. Get outside your comfort zone. I like to figure out what scares me and then charge straight for it. And that's really that's really the best way you could do it. It might not always be fun. Change and personal growth can be excruciating, but you'll always be able to look back and say, you know what, I'm better for that. I'm glad I went through it. So really just let go and 100% commit yourself. That's the best advice I could give.
That's some wise words, brother. All right, so with that having been said and done, I wish each and every single one of you peace, blessings, and power. Till next time.